cases, so I really try to do them quite often. But sometimes, I mean, the unsolved ones do too, but sometimes these solved ones really fry my cookies. Anyway, I'm gonna tell you all about Sabrina Nguyen. Now, I looked up several ways to say her last name. I do have a patient with that last name, so I'm saying it like she says it, because I figure that's probably way more accurate than anything I looked up. Yeah, could be all washed up. Anyway, at just 18, Sabrina had like this zest for life that was infectious. She had recently graduated high school, and she often talked to her family and friends about her dream to become an internet famous star with her own YouTube channel. She loved entertaining her parents and her older brothers at their home in Memphis. Her brother Jimmy, age 26, said it was always fun being around Sabrina. She was the life of the party, and she was the type of person that could bring the fun to you. Sabrina had a huge heart, and she never hesitated to help anyone if she could, even if they were just a stranger to her. Her bright smile and genuine nature are what drew people to her. She was literally the type of person that would give you the shirt right off of her back. I feel like we don't have as many people in the world today like that. Sabrina was goofy. She loved Dixie Queen hot wings, her mother's cooking, fast cars, and video games. There wasn't a shy bone in her body, and her strength in life was placing others before herself. Placing the problems of others before her own. I should phrase that better. And these problems of her own, she often shielded with this lighthearted humor because she didn't want to worry her family. Now, while Sabrina was really close with her family, she didn't share everything with them. So when she began dating a man named Kedron Coppage, whom she met at a party in early 2019, she really kind of glossed over the details about him. In fact, it wasn't until a few months after they started dating that her brother Jimmy got to meet him. When Jimmy and his girlfriend hung out with Sabrina and Kedron, he says that Kedron seemed okay. But, he wasn't in love with the guy, if that makes sense. Which I feel like my brothers said that about every person that I dated, but Okay. So not long into their relationship, and these details are pretty sketchy, so I pieced them together as well as I could. Obviously, Sabrina is not here to tell us about them. Not long into their relationship, reportedly, Kedron took like a bag of tools and he smacked Sabrina in the head with it. And 2 months after that, he assaulted her and broke her cell phone because she was trying to get away from him. This has happened to me, so I do sympathize. Sabrina, at this point, was so badly injured, she had to seek medical treatment, which is why these details are known. And at this point in time, Kedron was arrested for what he had done to her. But he didn't stay in jail for long. In fact, the next day, he found Sabrina. He attacked her, and he kidnapped her. And in fact, he knocked her unconscious in the process of doing this. At this point, he was arrested again. 2 days after that attack, Sabrina was able to get an order of protection was just walking free. He's managed to kidnap her, assault her, beat her up, and they're just like, bah. 1 month after this kidnapping and assault, Kedron isn't done yet. He starts repeatedly calling and texting. I don't know what his frame of mind was, because this was literally right before they were set to go to court. So on the day that Sabrina is going to court to prosecute him, he waits in the bushes outside of her house, just laying in wait for her to come out of her house. When Sabrina exits her house, she doesn't know that Kedron is there, and he brutally attacks her again, and for the 3rd time tries to kidnap her. But Sabrina was able to escape. So Kedron Coppage terrorized Sabrina Nguyen for months, and this is hardly the end of what he did to her. Can you imagine? Throughout the rest of 2019, Kedron keeps sending her scary, harassing text messages, phone calls, despite this order of protection, which he's violating with the text messages and phone calls, by the way. He stops by where she works. He stands outside her house and waits for her to leave, hides in the literal bushes, waiting for her to leave. He assaults her. He pulled a knife out on her, and he did manage to follow through with kidnapping her for a 3rd time. The 4th time that, yes, I don't know what happened between 3 and 4, but I put 4 this time. The 4th time Kedron kidnapped Sabrina was December 20th, a few days before Christmas. He manages to shove her in a trunk and then drove her across several state lines. He's driving her car, shoves her in her own trunk, and refuses to let her go. Sabrina ends up being held against her will by this man for 3 long days. And Kedron abused her physically and mentally the entire time, just as you would expect. Sabrina broke free after 3 days. I should not be filming. And Kedron actually drove her to the Memphis Police Department, where he dropped her off and then stole her car. This guy's a real joy to society. Her family says that even though Kedron has multiple arrest warrants that he'd racked up for this domestic violence and varying other crimes against Sabrina, after those first 2 times, he was never arrested again. So, around Christmas time, there was this event that happened, and I didn't really know where to fit it in, so I kind of just stuck it in the timeline. As I said, there's not a lot of details on this case. But Sabrina loved is hanging out with friends, and she tells them that she has to go meet with him to hopefully get her car back. She asks this friend to call the police and tell them where they're going to be, so maybe the police can arrest this person I can't say on YouTube. Anyway, her brother, Jimmy, ended up reporting her missing when she didn't return back home. I don't know why she went to meet this guy all alone. Why not take your brothers? Why not take the police? But I can't ask her questions. I can only sympathize. 2 days after Sabrina was last seen, someone passing through an intersection noticed Sabrina. She was lying lifelessly on the sidewalk. This person called 911, but when EMTs arrived, it was unfortunately too late. Sabrina was already gone. Her autopsy revealed that she had been murdered. Her cause of death was multiple sharp force injuries. Sabrina had been stabbed, and this is where it gets graphic, y'all, 38 times in her back, abdomen, torso, thighs, arms, wrists, legs, and shoulders. Sabrina put up a fight against her attacker, and she had the defensive wounds to show for it. Sabrina's mother, and I'm sure I'm gonna say this wrong, so I'm just gonna call her Sabrina's mother, had a bad feeling when they got the knock on the door from the police. The police told the family that Sabrina had been found stabbed to death less than 1 mile from their home. She was just lying in an intersection, you guys. I can't. Jimmy Nguyen said, "Me and my dad, we were just in disbelief. We could not believe it. We were hoping there was a chance for her." So, the police watch the CCTV footage and they see Kedron drive up in Sabrina's car, get out, and put her down on the ground and drive away. So he is arrested, finally, and he is charged with first-degree murder. Court documents show that Kedron admitted to being with Sabrina before and after her death. He admits that he drove her in her car to the intersection of Jackson Avenue and Maple Drive, where the police later found her body at 11:40 a.m. on January 2nd of 2020. He told the police he discarded the clothing he was wearing and abandoned Sabrina's car somewhere else. Other documents show that he described placing her in the trunk of her car, attempting to clean her blood, and changing out of the clothing he was wearing at the time of her death. Sabrina's family is suing the city of Memphis and the police officers they say failed to help her. I quite agree with this, by the way. My opinion doesn't matter, but her family feels like her death was entirely preventable had she gotten the help she so desperately needed. Sabrina's ex-boyfriend kidnapped and assaulted her on multiple occasions. He made terroristic threats toward her, stole her vehicle, violated bail conditions, and stalked her, her family wrote in a petition. He was arrested twice, and he had 8 formal charges brought against him in the month of December alone. Officers knew where he lived. They had previously arrested him at that location. These officers knew that Sabrina desperately needed her vehicle in order to get to work and to get away from dangerous situations involving Kedron Coppage. asks for monetary damages in the lawsuit. They also want to change a system they believe failed their daughter. If the police took domestic violence more seriously, my little sister would still be here, Jimmy says. What happened to her never should have happened at all, and we want to change that. Everything we do is Sabrina. Poor Sabrina. The Shelby County Criminal Court deliberated for only about an hour on Sunday morning before convicting 25-year-old Kedron Coppage for the brutal murder of his 18-year-old ex-girlfriend. Coppage was convicted of first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. He was automatically sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Sabrina Nguyen, and he will be sentenced later on for tampering for conviction. I didn't look to see if that has happened yet. So, I'm going to say this now, and I'm going to say it again. If you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence and you need help, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. This case was really hard for me. I don't even know where to start. Okay, let's talk about Sabrina first. I've been in this situation where you're in this toxic relationship, you try to get away, and this person just will not let you go. I have had my cell phone stolen. I never had my car stolen, but I know what it feels like to feel like you can't escape. I unfortunately had police officers that did help me, and I will never ever forget it. There was a police officer that said to me, you know, you don't have to do this. And I'll never forget him. Sabrina, on the other hand, did not receive that courtesy. I know that the Memphis police say that they are not responsible for her murder, and no, maybe they're not responsible for her murder, but they did have a hand in it. And you tell me if you think differently down below. But they knew where to find this guy. They knew what to do, and they just didn't do it. And I feel as though someone who is going to the lengths of literally laying in the bushes outside of her house, waiting for her, it should kind of be a sign that they're gonna go to extremes and something serious is going to happen. Now, I don't think that he should have spent the rest of his life in prison because he kidnapped her. I don't. But I think that maybe, okay, it really could go two ways. I'm kind of thinking like if the police had scared the snot out of him, maybe he would just leave her alone. But maybe he was just mentally just not prepared to do that. I mean, 38 times. He stabbed her 38 times. That is not, I just snapped and killed her. Like, that is an act of extreme rage to me. I recently had a discussion with one of you guys over Snapchat, and I love it. And it is remarkable to hear other people's views in cases like this, because I feel as though this subscriber, and I'm not going to say her name, would say that this guy might not deserve life in prison. And I really honestly want to know what you guys think. Do you think if they let Kedron out, would he reoffend? I'm not necessarily, I don't know. It's hard for me to explain. I am mostly, I don't know, it's a gray area. Mostly an eye for an eye kind of girl. But this subscriber did kind of, there are situations where that is not the case, you know? If you snap, like, oh, not necessarily, okay, I'm not, let me, comments, so I love it when you leave them down below. And if you don't want other people to see them, do not hesitate to send me an email. Do you think Kedron Coppage deserves life in prison for murdering Sabrina Nguyen? I really want to know. Sometimes I think jail is all the better. They can get a degree, they get 3 square meals a day, they got a roof. You know, they might be suffering a little more not in jail. But would he find another girl to obsess over, and then I would be reporting another case? I don't know. It's hard for me. I am quite jaded by 349. I'm on 349 true crime videos on YouTube. That's not including Patreon. So I'm quite jaded. So I would love to know your opinion. Although maybe many of you are just as jaded as me, having listened to many more cases than that. This case sucks. I was absolutely horrified to hear that he just left her in the middle of an intersection. He just left her in the middle of the dang road. And I hate that. I am like almost crying here at the devastation I feel at the fact that he just left her in the middle of the road. Like, I'm such a softie. I can't imagine. It feels so, it feels like a desecration. You know what I mean? Like, how horrible for her family, for her to have been found in the middle of an intersection. I'm not saying that it would be any better for him to just have left her in her car somewhere, but I don't know, it just feels extremely disrespectful. I don't know, it's stupid. I really do think that the police failed her. And I think that there are changes, I've discussed it before, that need to be made with our legal system and domestic violence victims. Honestly, and I know I gave the phone number and I will give it again and I will put it in the description box, but when you're in that situation, now she wasn't living with Kedron, it is extremely hard to pick up a phone and ask for help, whether it is the National Domestic Abuse Hotline or your mom or your sister or your cousin or whoever. Because first of all, this person is probably monitoring darn near everything you do, phone calls included. I only escaped by the grace of a higher entity that let my obsessed stalker meet someone else. And then he was done with me and I could escape. Not unscathed by any means, but everyone is not granted that grace, and many people suffer because they have no idea how to get help without being punished for it. And it is extremely sad to me that we live in a society today where you cannot go to the police station or the hospital and not be given the proper help that you need. I'm going to end this video with a different story that is kind of relevant. So, y'all know I work in the healthcare field, or maybe you don't, I do, and they say in domestic violence cases that if you are in a situation like a doctor's office where you can slip a note to someone, that the doctor's office will help you. This did happen at my job about a year ago, and I will not be violating any HIPAA laws by telling you, but she did slip our provider a note, and we arranged to have her come back for a follow-up appointment where the police would be there to help this person, she has gotten a divorce. She is free from this person, and she looks amazing. She looks completely different than she did, and she is so happy, and she is so free. But it took a lot of courage, number one, to come up and ask for a piece of paper, and number two, to then give it to the provider. So while I was in a domestic violence situation, it wasn't like this, and she literally felt like she had no escape. So I want to encourage you, if you're trapped, if you're scared, if you need help, all it takes is just a simple note, and we will help you. I mean, if you find me, I will help you. You know, I know those odds are, tiny, but there are still good people out there who can help, and they will. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, if you have any ideas for Spooktober, please drop them down below. I'm still trying to figure out how it's going to work. I'm definitely going to release more content for the month of October, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do every other day. Things are just really crazy here at the Geeky household, and I just don't have a lot of quiet, so I will do my best to provide as much spooky content for you for the month of October. But I will see you guys next week for my 350th YouTube video. Is that not crazy, guys? Not crazy. 350 videos. It's so many. I'm gonna try to come up with something